So let me start by welcoming everyone. Mark, do you want to start the recording or whenever
I did
it's
already.
appropriate?
It's
Okay, great. Okay, great. Want to let everyone know that, yeah, I'm Judy Flattery. I'm a board member on Prisons to Partnerships, and I invited the speaker today, so I get to lead in Robert's absence. And I just wanted to let you know what's Prisons to Partnerships about. We have a mission statement, and the mission statement says that Prisons to Partnerships welcomes individuals and groups to share ideas and resources and make connections that foster a community committed to transforming the narrative around incarceration and reentry for individuals, for families, and for organizations. And so in the spirit of that, once a month on the second Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we invite an individual, an organization, someone to talk to us about what they're passionate about, what their experience has been, what their hopes and dreams are, and what's their take on this whole area. And then we listen with compassion, with support, look for ways to make connections and support them and what they're up to. And so this month, our speaker's Michael Todd, and I'm asking Dave to introduce Michael to you. Go ahead,
Thanks.
Dave.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, so I asked Judy a bunch of time, how should I introduce Michael? And she said, just, speak from your heart, from your experience of him. So I met Michael, I think around 2 years ago, right, not long after I started volunteering in prison, either in Calipatria or Lancaster. So, and the Michael I know is a smart guy. He's articulate. He's always, really kills his introductions when he introduces himself to the participants. He's a compassionate guy. And what I find notable, you hear the word transformation a lot. Everybody, this thing transformed me. But to me, Michael is, as much as anybody I've ever met, the embodiment of transformation. And I've only had the chance to know this Michael after his transformation. And, what he isn't just a changed version of something he used to be. He's somebody wholly new when you listen to his story. And so you will hear a lot about a Michael that I never actually got the chance to meet. I know the Michael the way he is now. And I think the power of his story and of the journey to free himself and then give that back to other people is very powerful. And certainly I've seen the impact it has when he's talking to groups of participants in these programs that are still incarcerated and can see that, here's living proof that if I do the work, if I'm brave enough, if I confront it, I can get out there and I can be free too. So that's my experience of Michael, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Dave. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Todd, as he mentioned. It's good to be back here, see a lot of people that I recognize. I love Dave and Judy. They're great people. Spent some time with Neil, some others here. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about, and Tracy as well. There's so many people on the screen. Of course, my wife is here, and I recognize Peg. So it's great to see everybody and to talk, have the opportunity to talk about this. As Dave said, I have quite the history that a lot of people don't know about. And most people aren't able to tell by speaking to me or spending some time with me. But, I started out from the beginning, we'll just talk about trauma My very first memory is watching my dad try to kill my mom with a hammer when I was 3 years old. When I was 9, I watched my dad try to kill some people because he didn't like who they brought to the party. You know, after my dad and my mom split up, I moved in with my grandmother, and I was sexually abused in the house there. I never knew how to fit in, so I decided to fit out. I was I was aggressive, I was pushy, I was foul-mouthed, and I tried to make everybody fear me just so there would be some type of recognition because I just didn't know who I was and I didn't know how to be my authentic self. About the time, well, not the, about the time, but when I was 12 years old, right after spring break started on my 7th grade, at the end of 7th grade, I went out with a couple of friends and we went to the river to enjoy a day out. And I remember leaving the river, and then I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. And I found out about a week later that we had been hit by a diesel in the truck we were in, and it killed both of the guys that I was with. So I woke up at 12 years old. I couldn't walk. I had a broken pelvis. I had tubes in, helping me to urinate. And my family was lying to me saying, "Oh, your friends are fine. You'll see them when you get out of the hospital." So eventually one of my friends told me, no, that they're lying to you. Jimmy and Jason are dead. So, the trust that was supposed to be there in family wasn't able to be there through abuse, through sexual abuse, through the lying that they had done. And of course, my dad, his solution to my friend telling me was to try to pay some of the older guys to beat him up for telling me. But that was the answer to everything, right? Violence is the answer to everything. So that's what I learned from the time I can remember anything. And after I came out of the hospital, my dad was upset that he had to take care of me because I couldn't walk. I couldn't use the bathroom on my own. He used to break things and throw them at me and scream at me. And so I was angry. I couldn't get up. I couldn't take care of myself. I was dependent on other people. So as soon as I could get up, my entire image and identity had started forming around the fact that I could fight, that these people feared me, that I was somebody. I was the toughest kid in school. And here I am now stuck in a wheelchair. I had no idea who I was. Who was I supposed to be if I wasn't that kid that I was, that mask that I was developing and that I was wearing? So right after I got out of that situation, I moved in with my grandmother. She moved to a place called Oildale, California. It's right outside of Bakersfield. And it was the more racially motivated area of town. So it was the white kids, the stoners, the Peckerwoods, and the skinheads. So right after turning 13, going through that, this accident, coming out of that, I meet a guy who's 19 years old. And he's like, "Oh, you want to go fight? Well, hey, I'm a skinhead. You should come and fight with me too. This is what we do. We go fight everybody. Violence is the answer." So everything that I had learned was the only way I could get respect was now being reinforced by the crowd that I'm hanging out with. I have a 19-year-old telling a 13-year-old that, "Hey, you're somebody. I'm going to take care of you. You're my friend." and nobody's going to mess with you. So he became a father figure, because obviously the father figure that I had wasn't very good. So that happened at 13 years old. For the next 2.5 years, I was fighting, being sent out to attack people, trying to build an image of being the most violent person, the most shocking. And by the time I was 15, shortly before my 16th birthday, I went out with the same guy that had recruited me into this gang. And we went out with a couple girls and one of their friends. And this guy decided that we all wanted to run away. And he determined that this guy was going to tell on us for planning to run away and do a robbery or whatever it is, the stupid stuff we came up with when we were drunk. And by the end of that night, an innocent 16-year-old boy was beaten to death and buried in a field. And this is just the reality of what happened. I'm fully responsible for every single one of my actions. Yes, I was influenced by somebody who was older, but everybody has the ability to make a choice. And I chose to make someone else suffer to make myself feel important. The logical outcome of this, and the best outcome of this, was I didn't last out on the streets more than a day and a half after that. They tracked me down, I was arrested, I was tried as an adult, I was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, and by the time a month and a half after my 17th birthday, I stepped foot on my first maximum security adult prison yard. And I went there with the same attitude that I had before I got arrested. But now I had a bigger chip on my shoulder. I had moved up in the gang. Now I'm somebody. People better fear me. People better respect me. So I took the same attitude into prison that I had before, that if I threatened violence, it was usually enough to end any situations. But if that wasn't, then I had to carry through. So obviously, stepping into prison, I was no angel. And for 10, 15 years after being in prison, I certainly was no angel then either. I received write-ups for 15 violent 115s, which are the write-ups. And I was validated as a gang member. I participated in politics. I did stabbings. I did all this stuff that I thought was going to make me somebody in prison, that was going to make me respected, that was going to make people want to leave me alone. Because in the long run, that's what we really want in prison, is just be left alone. And yet you do that by trying to get acceptance from the wrong people. Same life that I lived as a child, I continued into prison. About 15 years into my sentence, they started talking about changing laws, letting people who were tried as adults as juveniles go to the parole board and possibly demonstrate that they're worthy to get out. But I didn't believe it. I knew what I had done. I knew the type of person I was. I was like, I wouldn't let me out, so why would they? But, I was getting older. I was getting tired of being at war. I was tired of having people try to kill me. I've been stabbed 40 times. I've been sliced 15 times. I've had my eye socket broken. I was in a state of war for about 10 years. I'm currently still on death list. But I just wouldn't run away. Not because I'm the toughest guy out there. It's just because I'm too damn stubborn. I was like, you're not going to run me off. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. And I don't care what you say. So they kept trying to kill me. Fortunately, after, several years of this warfare, I got to a place where the guys on the yard had decided that they wanted to program. They wanted to be left alone and stay out of all the politics and all the gang warfare. So I started getting help from others who were on that path. And as ironic as it seems, I was still on the fence whether I was with my gang or not with my gang. But I just wanted to be left alone. I got put into a class, a computer class, because, they didn't have computers when I got locked up. They did, but they were old Apples with floppy disk and things that some people don't even remember nowadays. And, the only thing I had done was play Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego in school on a computer. So I decided, I need to go learn this because I might go home one day and computers are the way of the future. Well, computers speak to me. I think in a very logical fashion, and I love math because there's an answer. It's not subjective. Black and white thinking was my go-to because I didn't have life experience. So I turned to books and movies and ideology. This is how life is supposed to be. So gray areas never did well for me. But a computer, you know what you're going to do. And I got in there and I learned how to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I got certified as a specialist. And the administration asked me to come in and work in the watch office, the program office, where all the captain, the lieutenant, all the high ranking officers were. So I got to go in there and I got to see a difference. I had spent my whole life in prison in this cops and con mentality. And now I see people who are treating me as a human. And I'm treating them as a human. And we start humanizing each other. But I also get into AA, NA, other self-help classes. And the guys on the yard that are supposed to be my friends, the ones that I have been through all the stuff for, got stabbed for, went through all the wars, they want me to quit my job. They want me to quit my classes. They want me to come onto the yard and carry a knife and wait for the next riot to happen. And yet I go into these classes and I have all these people who've been my enemies my entire life. Blacks, Mexicans, Asians. And they're like, hey, man, you should learn about your causative factors. You should learn about your triggers. You should learn about why you did the things you did. So, I'm looking at it and I'm going, why do my friends want to keep me in prison and my enemies want me to go home? And I'm like, well, I guess I'm a pretty bad guy. They would rather have me out of prison than have to mess with me, but nobody believes that. But it was really a paradigm shift. How could it be that these people who we would have killed each other, no hesitation about it, it's straight up, we would have killed each other. We now want to help each other out of prison. We want to help each other work through issues. We want to be there when they are going through something with their family. We started dropping nicknames. We started calling each other by our first names, or, whatever. We started humanizing. We got rid of those antisocial tendencies. Of course, there were others on the yard who didn't agree with that. I got isolated and ostracized by the guys who were supposed to be my friends, but I chose a path. Before I could leave this yard, some people who were involved in gangs and politics, they tried to kill me again before I left. I left that one with 25 stab wounds and a broken eye socket. But it was a point where I had to choose, do I keep this war going or do I try to go home? Those were the only options I had, because I either have to try to kill one of them because they tried to kill me, or I have to find a way to program. And I was lucky because, as I said at the beginning, I was too stubborn. I never went into SNY, which is sensitive needs yards, protective custody. I refused to go into protective custody just because I wasn't going to let these people run me off the yard. But I was fortunate because they had programming yards, and one of those was in Lancaster. And they had a dog program. They had people who'd been there for 10, 15, 20 years with no write-ups and no violence. And I'll tell you, the administration did not want to send me to that prison. They did everything they could because they said, we are not going to put this guy there. He's a danger. But somebody took a chance on me. And I got there and I stayed out of trouble. I got into the dog program. I became a clerk for the HFM, which is part of the Prison Industry Authority that does maintenance for medical facilities. So I was a clerk. I got to train people how to use the machines. I used all my computer skills digitizing the files. I trained all the new free staff that came in. And I spent all my time just trying to learn and trying to find a way to not be the person that I was. Before I got to this yard, I went to the parole board once before I got here. And I went there and they said, hey, we think you're on the right path. We think that you're going to be found suitable for parole. It's just not going to be today. And I was like, okay, well, I get that. And I said, but we'll see you in 5 years. And I walked back to the cell, and I was in administrative segregation at the time, which is the hole. And I walked back in there and I yelled down to the guys like, hey guys, they only gave me a 5-year denial. And people were cheering because the law says they have to give you a 15-year denial unless there's reason to give you a 10-year denial, unless there's reason to give you 7, unless there's reason to give you 5, unless there's reason to give you 3. So I went in there expecting a 15-year denial. And I knew that a 15-year denial meant I was dying in prison. It was another life sentence. But they gave me a 5-year denial and said, you're on the right path. We think you're going to be found suitable. So I was able to transfer to another yard, and I started working and learning and working on my narrative so that I could appear before the board 5 years later and they would say, damn, you're a different person. And that's what happened. 5 years later, I went back in there. I was able to own my story, own my narrative, cop to all the things that I had done, the person I had been, the harm that I have caused. And they believed it. They found me suitable. But it doesn't end there, because then you have a process. They get 4 months for the board, the board's legal team, to decide whether they made any legal mistakes. And then if you have a murder, the governor gets another 30 days to determine whether you get to, whether he's going to sign off on you going home or not. So I sat there and I didn't believe it. They're not going to let me go. It's no way. I know what I did. 120 days passed. They didn't say anything. So it means I got past the legal team. Got up to 145. I'm like, it's getting close. 46, 47. Day 150, I'm at work. They call me and they said, hey, I'm at work. And they said, they want to see you back in the building right now. My boss and all the guys in there said, oh, you're going home. That's it. That's 150 days. I said, no, I'm not. I walked into the counselor's office. He said, hey, man, the governor just pulled your date. I said, well, you're on 150, so your time's up, but, you know, when could he have possibly done this? This is a Monday. It's like, oh, he did it 2 days ago. I said, well, I know damn well the governor is not working on a Saturday, but okay. But what he did was he sent me en banc, which is back to the full board. He didn't say no. He didn't say yes. He said, you want to let him go, parole board? It's on you. So they sent back. So they maybe do another 30 days. And his reasoning was, oh, he was a gang member. He was affiliated with these white supremacists. He was this, he was that. And I sat there and I said, okay, well, we'll see what happens. And I was lucky because my boss, he was cool. So he pulled up on the computer so I could listen to the hearing, because you're not allowed to talk in this hearing. You don't get to know anything about it. They just send you a decision. But it turned out I had a lot of people who spoke up for me. And they wanted to use the fact of my former affiliation, but everybody who called in was Jewish and Black and Asian and Mexican. And they said, damn, how can we keep saying we can't let this guy go because he's a racist when all of his friends are non-white? But that's what happens when we humanize one another. It's what happens when we find out who we are and quit trying to live for others. Now, I got out of prison almost 3 years ago. Next month will be 3 years. And 6 months later, I was back in prison doing workshops. I continued going back. I mean, I've worked for 3 different nonprofits that in this field since I've been out. I've dealt with, I've worked with other ones, and I go back in as much as I can because I know that the guys in there need the same opportunities that I had. They need the same hope that I had. They need somebody to say, I was there, I was you, and I still made it out. Because for so many years, there was no hope. And I'm fortunate now because I've recently started my own nonprofit, which is based on what helped me get out of prison and change my life. And the things that inspired me and made me who I am. You know, I was fortunate because my grandmother had me reading by the time I was 3 years old. Time I was 7 years old, I was in the Book of the Month Club and I was reading books. We just came home from my grandmother's the other day and, you know, brought home another bin of books. And, you know, I have original first edition Hardy Boy books. I have the Iliad, the Odyssey, complete works of Shakespeare, and all of these other books that were my refuge when I was a child. So I didn't know how to fit in. So I turned to books. And what I've learned now and what I'm doing with our new organization, New Start Enterprises, which I started with my wife, Morgan, here, we're reminding people that they are the heroes of their own stories. People forget this. So many of us, we don't remember. We become backup characters in somebody else's story. We see ourselves as the villain in our own story, especially these guys in prison. But there's so much knowledge contained in the stories of the ancients. They told us how to be heroes. They told us that it was okay for a man to cry. They told us it was okay to have anger, but it was not okay to have unrestrained anger. They told us that love was something worth cherishing. And they told us that every single one of us has the ability to become that hero. And one of my favorite types of books when I was a kid was a choose your own adventure book. And I look at life today as a choose your own adventure. When you're reading these books, you follow the story, it's laid out until you reach a place where you're able to make a choice. You're asked to make a choice, make a decision. And if you make the wrong one, there's nothing you can do except go along with the story until the next place that you're able to make a choice. Then you hope that you make the right choice. If not, you go along until you find another place to make a choice. The book wants you to be the hero. It's going to give you the choice all the way till the end of the book. The last page before the very end, they're going to say, if you make this choice, if you do this, the book wants you to be a hero. Life wants you to be a hero. You are supposed to be the hero of your own story. You have to own your own narrative. You have to show the world who you are. And this is where trauma comes in. The life we grow up in, the lifestyle we grow up in, the trauma that we go through, the things that happen to us, they start putting a damper on our own belief in our heroism. When I sit in prison, there's so many guys in there who say, no, I'm no good. I'm evil. I'm a villain. I did this, because they forgot that they are and can be the heroes of their story. They have to reach that point where they make a choice. And as I said, I love the ancients. I love the stories. I'm also a big geek. I was a Dungeons and Dragons player as a kid. Love it to this day. But there's a concept in Dungeons and Dragons that you have to accept before the game can even begin. And this concept is called suspension of disbelief. You have to be able to believe that you are the hero. In context of the game, that might mean you're doing a triple somersault off of a balcony and grabbing a ring on the way by and drinking a potion while you're doing it. But without suspension of disbelief, the game doesn't work. Without suspension of disbelief, life doesn't work. You can't be the hero if you don't believe that you can. If you say, I grew up in bad circumstances, so I can't be rich, I can't be famous, I can't do whatever, you are locking yourself in there. But once you accept the idea that you can change anything just by making the effort, the whole world opens up for you. So what I've done in our curriculum that we're working on is we're going back to the myths of the ancients. We're taking the participants on a mythic journey. In all of the stories, some of the greatest ones were the ones where the hero had to go down into the underworld and face all their fears and then find the gold, the treasure, their love, whatever it was that they had to bring back to the world. It saved their love, it saved their city, sometimes it saved humanity from the wrath of the gods. So this is the idea that I'm putting out there for trauma, is that you have to go into the underworld. And what I've done is wrap this entire idea up in Dante's Inferno. You wake up in the middle years of your life in a dark wood because that's your inner child that's lost and confused because you abandoned it when you made other choices. There's 3 beasts that block your path back to the straight way. But a guide appears to take you through the inferno, to show you the consequences of trauma, sin, whatever it is, because you can't beat those beasts on your own. The only way out is through. You go through, you see these circles of hell. You see people suffering from trauma. You see the shade of your own heroic essence there from the trauma that you've suffered. And as you go down in each one of these circles, you'll see yourself, but you also see people, other people that you've traumatized. They're in hell with you. You guys are suffering together. You're holding each other there. And as you go all the way through this journey, you reach the bottom. And in Dante's telling of it, Lucifer is stuck there because this is the place of treason and he's the worst traitor, but he's stuck in ice. And the ice is formed because all the other traitors there are weeping for their betrayal. And he's flapping his wings, which freezes the water, freezes the tears, and keeps him there because he won't accept his fate. If he stops flapping his wings, he could just walk on out of here. But he's not going to. And he's there suffering for what he did, and everyone else is suffering with him. When Dante gets there, he's at the very bottom of the inferno, and the only way out is down. So he climbs down Satan's legs, and as he passes the middle of the earth, there's a turning point, and he starts climbing up. He faced his greatest fear. In our analogy, our greatest fear, our greatest revelation is that beast at the bottom of the inferno is the worst version of yourself, who abandoned your inner child, who put all of these people in hell. But as you climb up and you reach purgatory, you start the journey of being purified. Your past life, your past actions, your past beliefs all burn away as you become pure. And as you reach paradise, you find your inner child there. You're now pure. You're now worthy of being reunited with this child so he can be the hero of the story again. At that point, Dante received all this knowledge from the heavens. We receive it from the ancients. And we found a code. We call it the RAID code, RAIDD. Responsibility, accountability, integrity, discipline, and dedication. And with this code, you're able to go back. You now become a guide for somebody else. You go back to that dark wood and you are a guide to walk someone else through the inferno. But every time you go back, you have to face those beasts again. It's a little bit easier, but it's still hard. But every time you go back, you help yourself. And by helping yourself, you help somebody else. By helping somebody else, you help yourself. And this cycle continues because this is the heroic journey that everybody is destined to be on. Going through hell is part of it. Everybody is traumatized. It's part of the heroic narrative. We have to do that. It's because that's what makes us heroes. From this platform, we have other programs. We have this transformation program, but we also have programs facing the beast, which are going to be dealing with substance abuse, dealing with gang life, criminal lifestyle. All that stuff is all part of these beasts that you have to face. But once you get through it and you have this code, it makes it easier. Okay, and that's what I got. I think I'm out of time.
Thank you. It's every time I hear your story, I hear new richness, new details, and I'm moved and inspired by who you are. Tell us, you're starting this new organization. We've seen who you are, what you're committed to. How can we help and support you? What do you need?
Well, as with every nonprofit, especially a new startup, we just, we got our 501(c)(3) recently. We filed the articles of incorporation, doing that. Right now, we are looking for funding. We're looking for donors. We're looking for people who will fund us and support what we're doing. We're currently already have been invited into 6 prisons in California to run our workshops. 3 of them have also said, as soon as you're done with that workshop, if you want to provide weekly programming, you can do that as well. So we are in the process right now of finding out, or not finding out, but finding the funding to keep this going. Right now, we love this work. It is very personal for me, obviously. I do this because I can't forget about those that I left behind. I can't forget about those other heroes sitting there who just need to remember who they are. And obviously our philosophy isn't just for people in prison, it's for everybody, but they need it very badly. And we need other people to understand that they have the capacity to transform, to change, to be a guide that's going to change the world. So we have a website, which is newstartenterprises.org. We're on all the social media platforms.
Should put it in the chat, huh? There it is. Good job, Morgan. Quick.
And I would like to have my wife say a couple things because she comes to this work from a different lens.
We'd love to hear from you, Morgan, if you're willing.
I'm always willing to talk. That's an open invitation right there. But I will keep it brief. Hi, everyone. My name's Morgan. Hi, Tracy. I saw you. A bunch of my friends are here, and it's great because we all met in prison, so that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I came into this work from the nothing ever happened to me, but why am I addicted, lonely, and depressed and suicidal? Why do I not want to be here? And I spent my whole life searching for answers in other people and external substances and attachments, so to speak. So when I discovered this trauma journey, it changed the trajectory of my recovery from addiction. And I had created my own prison, and I think a lot of people who have not been physically incarcerated can relate to a mental or emotional or spiritual incarceration analogy. I was very much there, and just learning about trauma really, that was it. It was a game changer. It was like, okay, this is where I need to be. I'm going to move to Los Angeles from Medicine Hat, Alberta, and I'm going to get right in there in the trenches and I'm going to do this work because I could sit behind a computer all day long, but to hold space for somebody and have them feel seen and supported in a moment can change somebody's life. And it certainly changed mine when I found the right people who could do that for me. And all of a sudden I started to love myself. And this is possible for everybody. And that's my personal mission, is to love, is to show people that they are worthy. There is a way out, and it's in your hands. It's in you. You're the hero of your own journey. No one's going to come do it for you. Certainly we can love you, we can guide you, we can support you, but ultimately it's your choice. And that was, I mean, I've had way too many aha moments over the last couple of years of my life that I can't get into here for timing purposes, but it was just when I realized I could make choices to live my life for me, not for the masks I put on, not for other people, because that was my form of fitting in, was to get love and belonging. You do what everybody else wants from you, and that's how you'll feel accepted. And what I didn't realize was that trauma takes many shapes and forms. It's not necessarily a big event that is visible, it's invisible. And growing up in an alcoholic, very neglectful home, I'm 43 years old, 43 years old, yes. Um, I'm reparenting myself now. I'm teaching myself how to eat breakfast. And even if I eat breakfast, don't eat the cupcakes. I'm literally, I mean, I'm also doing parts work, but it's just like, it is such a journey to love yourself and know your worth. And that's what I want to bring into this. So when Michael and I met, we were doing this before we even started dating. So I had a vision, he had a vision, it aligned, and it's rooted in helping people. And the work we've done in prison is just, I'd rather be nowhere else. I'd rather be nowhere else. Um, there's something in my own stubbornness that just wants to change all minds, because when you take away judgment and shame and all these societal assumptions and see a human, like, that's all we are. There's nothing else. Everything else is like a wall, a barrier that blocks you from pure connection and presence and love. And so I've been on this journey myself. I'm still on the journey myself. It's possible to change your life. It's possible to leave the relationship. I have done things I would never have imagined I'd have the courage to do, and I've done it. And I feel freer on the other side for having done that. So I don't know why you asked me to speak, but that's all I want to say. I mean, I got so much else to say, but thank you everybody for listening to us and sharing this space tonight. And thank you, Judy, for inviting Michael to speak. And now I've inserted myself. But we're in a place and a phase in life where it's kind of like this dichotomy I was complaining to Michael about earlier. It's like, all I want to do is this work. All we want to do is write and build up the content and the programming that we need to help give back. But then there's the part of you that goes, damn it, I need a job. So that's where we're at, because we're we're not working with the other nonprofits anymore. So we're looking for financial support so that we can build this. And we are doing it. But it's just a transitionary time, but I know it's all going to work out and it's going to be amazing. And I hope to see all of you in prison again.
Yeah, I mean, that's where Dave and I and Tracy, I guess, all met Michael and Morgan, is that we're volunteers, and they're working with the Compassion Prison Project, Fritzy Horseman's group. And that's where we got to know each other and spend a lot of time in prison together. And I support 100% what you're saying, is that when I'm there in prison working with the people who are working on themselves, you feel like there's no better use of your time than being right there with them. So I fully support what you guys are up to, and looking forward to hearing about your success. And we want to be part of it. So, I want to be part of it. When you go into prison, I want to be there with you. Dave wants to be there with you. Tracy wants to be there with you, if I can speak for Tracy. So are there questions from the group for Michael or for Morgan? I don't know, anything in the chat? Let's see, let me change my view to speaker view or gallery view.
I think Marion has her hand.
Anybody? Okay,
And Edwin.
go ahead. Marion, and Edwin, I see you. Okay, Marion.
Michael, you talked about the dog project. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I was initially in prison. I was part of Paws for Life Canine Rescue, where I learned how to train dogs. I learned how to train service dogs. I have some dogs that have been placed with military veterans with PTSD. I came out, I started my own dog training business. And then this nonprofit that I started actually came from the idea initially that I was going to work with transition age foster youth and teach them how to train dogs so that we could train service dogs for vets with PTSD, which is still part of our program. I didn't get into the further programs because there is a dog element in what we're going to do, because there's so many life lessons that you can learn from dog training. There's about being firm but fair, being consistent, having rules and boundaries. I'll tell you what, when I work with like a mom and her daughter, like the mom always says, I wish I would have known all this stuff when I was raising a child. And then, we tell the daughter, like, you're learning about setting boundaries. You're learning stuff that's going to help you with your boyfriend in the future. So, but all of these things are part of it. I mean, dogs saved my life. They loved me even when I couldn't love myself. So I definitely want to bring this into prison in this element, and out here as well. So we have lots of plans. We also, with our substance abuse, we believe that substance abuse comes from unresolved trauma. So the answer to that is to start resolving your trauma, start working on that, recognizing that. As you start working on the trauma, you have less of a need to medicate yourself and numb yourself. So all of this all wraps back around to understanding that you're the hero of your story and that you can make the decision to change anything in your life.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Edwin, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I did. I didn't really have a question per se. It was just really more of, I know Michael Todd, I know Morgan, and really just impressed with the resiliency, with their level of commitment to this work, and just hearing your story and everything that you've gone through. Man, bro, like you're a leader. You're a leader, and you have so much to offer, so much knowledge. I've personally learned a lot from you, and yeah, man, I'm just very honored to know you, to hear your story, to see you in this platform, and I just really look forward to continue to see you in these areas here. So congratulations to you both.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And for everybody who doesn't know, Edwin was also in the dog program with me. He was a juvenile LWOP who is now out of prison, and he took over my position in the dog program when I left. So we spent a lot of time talking about things and that, and he's out here free, and he's a great man. So thank you for being
And LWOP is life without parole for anyone who isn't familiar with that. And I see a note here from Don saying, Michael, have you ever met or considered working with Daryl Davis, the musician that has worked with Klansmen that gave up their robes and followed them in their transformation?
I have not, I haven't worked with him, never met him. I'm open to it though.
Yeah, Don, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, let me unmute myself. It just kind of came along with first of all, thank you so much, and I'm honored to be listening and on the call. And I grew up, I'm one of those guys. I'll just say one of those kids that missed prison, by a couple of, lucky breaks, and have several childhood friends who are still in and probably won't ever be out. And it's something that's near and dear to me. And there's a couple people on this call that have invited me to be able to serve, or take an idea to look into this. And so I'm really grateful to listen to your story and listen to what you're putting out there. So first of all, thank you for all that. And it's just tremendous. It's really tremendous work. And reason I mentioned Daryl is because Daryl, do you know who Daryl Davis is?
I vaguely I've seen some stuff on it, but
Yeah, if you Google him, he's I think he's originally from Mississippi, but he's in the deep South. He's a musician, blues musician, toured some real seedy clubs in the country and ran into some ones that were, basically like Klan hangouts, and some guys said some stuff to him, and lo and behold, over time, he met with a guy that was a grand dragon of the main leading chapter, and they became friends, invited each other to dinner, and over time, it made him give up his robes, and he has now 200 Klan robes on his wall, and has worked with a lot of groups, in hate groups. And it's a tremendous, he's got a tremendous, there's a couple documentaries, but I think that there's a lot of cross pathways that you guys could possibly, and if I get a hold of them, I'd love to connect you guys, because I think there's a lot of stories there that could be just overwhelming for the community right now. And I grew up and went to elementary school in an all black neighborhood. And I was raised in a magnet elementary school around really a massively diverse society. So I've been in sort of engaged in this work for most of my life. And to hear someone who's gone through really just the depths of hell through this thing, it's it means a lot to me. And personally, I know that, growing up, the kids that were sometimes at the opposite end of the racism, watching how they were so thick-skinned and how they developed a temerity to not fight with every person who was racist against them, because one of it was like, Don, if we didn't play with everybody who called us the N-word, then we'd have nobody to play with, but that also gave me the ability to, when I saw people who were coming back out of this, I worked with Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I worked with guys who we understood that if we just called them a name and turned our back, that the problem just gets deeper and wider. But if we actually turned to them and said, "What is it, brother? What happened? What happened? What made you, into this way of thinking and believing?" And you can speak firsthand from that, and hearing you say, the people that were vouching for you were people that would have never been in your corner, and so I think that that's an extremely valuable story to share with the world right now, like really valuable.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Don, too. So often I see I've learned in prison, it's not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. Yeah.
What happened? Yeah.
What had you come to this point? Yeah, being who you are today. Yeah, I see that we're about 2 minutes over time. Is there anybody else who wants to say anything or has any questions or comments? Yeah, thanks again, Don. Thanks to Michael. Teresa, is anything, you have anything there? So anyway, Tracy, of course,
Yes,
Tracy.
thank you. I want to congratulate you, Michael and Morgan, for stepping out. It really takes a lot of courage. I mean, it really, like, to create your own nonprofit, come up with this. I mean, I've looked at your stuff. You really have done a lot of work, and to have 6 prisons already asking you to come in. Amazing, amazing job. So
you.
good
Great,
work.
thank you.
Mhm.
So if anybody has connections into organizations, into grants, into other places where maybe they could talk, where they could tell their story, where they could access funding, ideas for networking, other communities, please let us know. I really want to see them take off and fulfill on the passion and commitment that they've got here for creating more heroes in the world. Okay.
Just
So
helping
with
them
that,
remember
Dave,
remember who they are, Judy.
and remember
That's
who
it.
they are.
We're not creating them. We're just
Doing
helping
so.
them remember who they are.
Thank you for that correction. Yeah, anything else? Dave, do you have anything? No, all right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so with that, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending. Thanks for the work that you're all doing.